Hi again. In A.T. Robertson's The Divinity of Christ in the Gospel of John, page 84, he's dealing with chapter 9 of the Gospel of John, the wit of the man born blind. This chapter relieves the tension of the story by the delightful play of wit and humor on the part of the gifted man who was healed by Jesus as he passed out of the storm in the temple. The man's humor appears in his naive confession to his neighbors that he is in reality the very beggar who used to be blind. He tells the simple, straightforward story of the facts relative to the opening of his eyes, sticks to it all the time, parries every effort to get himself tangled in his words, expresses his own opinion that Jesus is a prophet, refuses to call Jesus a sinner to relieve the Pharisees of their own theological embarrassments over a stubborn fact that upset their theology about the Sabbath. And he stands by the crucial fact of his receiving sight at the hands of Jesus, playfully twits the Pharisees with the desire to become the disciples of Jesus, and makes merry over their ignorance about Jesus, and finally argues conclusively to show that God must be with Jesus at any rate. The Pharisees lose all self-control and blaze out at him, "Thou wast altogether born in sin, and dost thou teach us?" That's verse 34. They finish the business by casting the impudent upstart out of the synagogue, out of church, that is to us, the way of the bigot in all ages who tries to stifle truth by injury to the herald of it. But the outcome of this story is beautiful indeed. Jesus heard of the poor fellow's treatment and sought him out. He had been turned out of the Jewish church, but Jesus was going to take him into the kingdom of heaven, which alas was outside of that church, as has often been true through the ages. Even organic Christianity has sometimes turned the followers of Jesus out of doors and left Jesus himself standing on the outside of the church and would not open the door to let him in. And he references here Revelation 3:20, where that's the very thing that happened to Christ outside the door of his own church, the church of Laodicea. Because to do that would be to disturb the smug complacency of a dead church in the grip of the devil. So Jesus reveals himself to the man whose eyes he had opened as the Son of God, and at once receives the fealty and the worship of the man's heart. Here we have a flashlight on the historic environment of Jesus. The religious leaders of the Jewish people, who should have been able to recognize him as Messiah, the Son of God, were so utterly blind that they could not tell light from darkness. They even try to put out the light of the world and to ostracize these who have their eyes open to see. They preferred the aristocracy of darkness and death to the democracy of light, freedom, and life in Christ. "Are we also blind?" the Pharisees pitifully asked Jesus. Alas, if their blindness had been only intellectual and not spiritual, their case would have been better. They claim to be the torchlights of truth for the people. They boast of their insight and yet cannot escape their sin. This word of Jesus holds good for all preachers and theological teachers today. We must all speak what we see, but we do it at our own risk. The light has come, but men love the darkness rather than the light, for their works were evil. I'll put in a link to a video we did on another chapter 9, Daniel chapter 9. And the link is entitled 607 Jerusalem and the Name. The prophets are blind. They were blind. Most of the prophets were blind in the Old Testament. So why are JWs blind to what Daniel's priorities are? In Daniel chapter 9, he prays, and for the only time uses the name Yahweh or Jehovah. In the entire book of Daniel, that's the only place you find it. Why there? Well, 607 Jerusalem and the Name. That video ties these thoughts together. See you soon.